I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. We are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So you guys could all mute, rise if you choose, and say the pledge after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mr. Eckel has arrived. So as you guys know, we're going to start the meeting tonight with executive session, and I'm going to make a motion to head into that executive session. So I move that the school committee enter executive session at 6:01 p.m. under so-called Purpose 3 to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, specifically the matter of Maria del Rosario versus Neshoba Regional School District docket number 1885 CZ01899, based on my belief that having the discussion in open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the school committee. Executive session will also include the superintendent, director of pupil personnel services, Joan DeAngelis, and district legal counsel attorney, Kevin Freitag. School committee to return to open session at the conclusion of executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, so roll call, all in favor. I say yes. Steve?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Kevin? Karen?
Yes.
Brett?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And Amy?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, so Nikki, I guess around 6:30. everybody. I do have 4 public comments, so I'm just waiting to see if those friends of ours come in. Let's see. Slowly but surely. Hi, Sonia.
Hi.
Because it says Dan in your bottom corner.
That's my dad's name. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, is that Dan Obby? No.
All right. I'll take.
All right, so I first on my list is Mallory Sitterchuk. I don't think Mallory is with us though. Perhaps she will pop in any minute now.
They're all in the waiting room, Leah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here we go. I'm going to bring Mallory in first. Okay. Keely and Jason. Okay, everybody. So as you can see, we have some community members who are here to speak with us. For the community members who are here, you guys will be given the opportunity to engage in public comment in the order that it was requested. So if everybody could just remain muted while they're not speaking, that would be best. We are going to go in this order. It goes Mallory, Keely, and then I think I see Ellis's iPad. But I think I'm looking, am I looking for Dana? Dana, is that you? Oh, okay, fantastic. Is it possible to change the name on your screen? Just for the public record, people can see who you are. That would be wonderful, if you can. I know on an iPad, it might be hard. One more time, we're gonna go in this order. It goes Mallory, Keely, Dana, and then Jason. So Mallory, you can begin.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, thank you for approving once again. I wrote it down this time. Okay, so we all know I'm here to support the continued mandatory masking at the high school. Unmasking them would, in no doubt, trickle down to the entire community, and I have no doubt opened the door to conversations about unmasking the middle and elementary school. At the risk of repeating what other parents might say, I'd like to instead share an experience. After holiday break was over, my husband and I made the choice to hold our older kids out of school and activities in hopes of avoiding the COVID surge. We waited 3 weeks, but as soon as I returned my kids back out into the community, they came home with COVID. They brought it home to their 16-month-old sister. And while my 2 older vaccinated kids were mostly fine, my toddler was not. Despite our best efforts and directions from the pediatrician, Claire still became extremely ill. To see my very young baby suffer the way she did was stressful and heartbreaking, and I don't want it to happen again and again and again. I want to live in a community that protects everyone. It feels like most of the people who want to drop masking don't have kids under 5 or any compromised family members or friends. I don't keep my kids home during remote learning year-round just for our benefit. I did it because I'm privileged enough to be home with them and lightened the load for kids who absolutely needed it, the in-school learning, and ultimately to protect our newborn at the time. We waited for the 5 to 12-year-old range vaccine to come out, but now that it's our turn for our younger kids, we get no support in return. It's really a slap in the face for all of the work that we put in. And I get it, we're all tired, emotions are all over the place. I feel sad for all the parents and kids in our community because we cannot agree on the very basic precautions. But honestly, I cannot accept the anti-masking argument. Your comfort does not override my kids' health and safety. Even while I write this, I can hear Charlie Baker in the background, and it's disheartening. I get the sense I'm on the losing side of the battle. So I had asked Mr. Downing, what's your plan? Do you have one? Why lift the mask mandate without one? How do you plan on handling the next variant surge? And lastly, my plea to the school committee to vote, to make the right decision for the entire community. I truly feel bad for those of you on the committee right now. You're making a very difficult decision with a superintendent who has already made his decisions clear and tried to overstep you in his last very vague email. All I'm asking is for the district to wait until all of our kids have the chance to be vaccinated. It would only be fair. Thanks, Leah.
Thanks, Mallory. All right, so I will turn it over to our next speaker, and that's Keely.
Hello. So per Commissioner Riley and Governor Baker, the masking mandate was lifted today, but I know they left it up to the districts to make their own decisions regarding things. I would hope that our administration would follow suit and that all school grades would benefit from optional masking, not just the high school. There's absolutely no reason why optional masking should be specific to one group and not all. Masking is no longer rational when towns, cities, states, and countries are peeling back mandates and trying to return to a level of normalcy. The consequences of masking our children are being recognized. It is the youngest students that seem to be more severely affected. Language skills, socialization, basic learning has been disrupted and is unclear to what degree and how deeply anxiety, depression, and loss of socialization had adversely affected our youth. But it is clear that parents across the state have emailed, called, and spoke out to the school boards, DESE, and the governor in hope for change. And now there's an answer. But with change, I hope that our community and schools can work together to shift our goals and practices. Emotional health and well-being supports learning. Now's the time to continue to peel back the layers of mitigation. All this time, masks were a Band-Aid and never a solution for things. Our children have always been safe in the schools as transmission in the schools has been very low and has been more in the community. I'm sure it's involved a great deal of work, but the result has been worthwhile in regards to the NRSD dashboard. We've been able to track the highs and lows and see where it's been community spread versus school spread. I know based on the testing, we were able to identify a lot of that. And finally, I would like to say, or I shouldn't have to say this, but I want to clarify that optional masking does not mean anti-masking. It does not mean that I don't care about you or your family or those who are too young or immunocompromised or unable to care for themselves. There's a growing divide on this issue, and it's pitting one person against the other. Simply, all families are different, and that is natural. People should respect everyone's choice to do what is most appropriate and comfortable for them and their family. This pandemic has been going on for 2 years, and the science has shifted. At this point, everyone can responsibly make decisions, and those decisions represent how we have learned and grown as a community to support a progression. Thank you as always, and I hope you guys choose to make it optional so that I can also have a decision to unmask my child, whereas others can continue to mask their children if they want to. And I think it will benefit our children as we go into the next few months. Thank you.
Thanks, Keely. All right, I'm going to move over to Ms. Dana Ellis. Go right ahead. Dana, I think you might be muted. I'm so sorry. Oh, we still can't hear. Can you guys hear her? Dana, we're struggling to hear you. I'm sorry. We're gonna maybe move over to you, Jason, and give you the opportunity to speak while Dana tries to figure out her technology. Is that okay?
That works. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right. All right, guys. All right. So I did write down some of these with the help of my wife, of course. Some things before, so I will read and not look. So I apologize for that. But here we go. So hello, Superintendent Downing and the members of the school committee. I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to speak tonight and for all your hard work throughout the pandemic. It's been a really long and tiresome road, and I appreciate the dedication to providing our children with the best learning environment despite all of these horrendous conditions and really trying times. As Leah said, my name is Jason Kilo. I am an immunologist who's dedicated really the majority of the pandemic to learning and understanding the science behind the virus. I was actually working with patient samples at one point and working on trying to create proactive and solutions and drugs for this awful pandemic. During the pandemic, different variants have thrown curveballs, which have changed the recommendations from the CDC scientists and doctors, as well as the obvious political influence on both sides, which has led to a lot of distrust and confusion with what actually is the best course of action to protect our children and community. The current CDC guidelines just yesterday stated that now is not the time to remove universal masking in our schools, despite what has come out from the governor and others. But that is the best, it's currently the best strategy, mitigating strategy we have, as the vaccine is proven not to lower transmission of the Omicron variant, but it only lowers the possibility of severe illness and death. There are other ways that COVID affects people that are not considered severe, but have long-term effect. The long COVID is a serious issue plaguing our country with regards to labor, first responders, and other vulnerable populations. While those are kind of some of the facts I think most people have heard out there, I believe the most important argument for continuing to mask is that our children, for the majority of families, are forced to be in school. The vaccine does not stop infection, and therefore we really need to do everything possible to stop the spread. And 80% or even higher in some cases, I think it's up to 88% in some places, vaccinate really doesn't mean much with this variant. Because if the virus is infecting those vaccinated, they can still spread the disease, the virus, and sorry, I lost my place. And most likely future variants will. It may also increase the number of asymptomatic cases, further increasing that spread. People may still bring the virus home from school or other places and infect those that are vulnerable. Masking is really the only proactive way to prevent this. The new at-home testing program combined with the school testing are amazing tools to help stop infection, but it's far from what we need to keep our children, teachers, and community safe. The at-home testing requires that all of the community to report and take the test correctly, which is really difficult, unfortunately, in these times where we're so heavily divided. Most of our community is being really good about this, I will say, but it only takes very few to mess that up, I think. To finish, I completely sympathize with how tired and frustrated and just plain done with the pandemic everybody is. I think that's probably oversaid, but the virus will become endemic and have to be lived with, but we're not quite there yet. We're close. That being said, masking is really the only thing the school has control over to make it one less place to catch and spread COVID to our vulnerable loved ones and community at large. I think instead of being reactive, I hope the school community will be proactive and continue the masking. It's something we're all used to. And thank you very much. Sorry if that was a little long.
That's okay. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it. And I think that maybe Dana, do you want to just say hello, see if I can hear you? I'm so sorry.
Sometimes muting and unmuting helps.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Are you connected to a Bluetooth, anything Bluetooth in your house? Sometimes the speakers change.
Okay, last time. Does this work?
Yeah.
Okay,
Good
so
job.
sorry. I'm so sorry.
No worries. Welcome. Go right ahead.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so hi, my name is Dana Ellis and I live in Stowe. Between January 10th and the 14th, the positive cases for the entire district, students and staff, was 181. The most recent number is 24. On the backside of this steep decline in cases, I'm advocating a move towards normalcy and optional masking in school. This decision should be based on a slew of scientific evidence supported by DESE, allowing the mandate to expire, and information from many credible mainstream publications. Let me see here. Thank you for hearing my thoughts. Sorry, I think I have this going in the background. Shoot. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. Here we go. Cancel. At his recent State of the Union, Governor Baker addressed our nation's leading vaccine rate, near 100% for those over 65 and near 80% for our eligible population. This impressive number doesn't include another critical data point that is gaining a lot of mainstream and scientific attention: natural immunity. Since the initial Israeli study emerged containing evidence of far greater protection from natural immunity than the vaccine, a lot of subsequent supporting data has followed. This is great news. Our vaccination numbers are far from a complete picture of a more discussion of overall immunity. This brings me to the purpose of my public comment: mandatory masking. The Washington Post article that I had sent you guys included updated CDC guidance where 3 Boston doctors advocate for the removal of masks. They cite children's mental health, risk of bad outcomes, ineffectiveness of many, but not all, masks, low transmission rates in school, and a need to return to some normalcy. In this article, they also discussed how respirators and other quality masks are highly effective at protecting their wearers, regardless of what people around them are doing. So this makes that old mantra of my mask protects you and your mask protects me obsolete. The US has taken a very different approach than much of the developed world. The Atlantic article I also sent you states that the United States is an outlier in recommending masks from the age of 2 up, and then the World Health Organization does not recommend masks for children under 5. The European equivalent of the CDC doesn't recommend them for children under 12. Other countries and institutions weighed the risks of masking children and landed at a much different place than we did in the US. That's not to say that one is right and one is wrong, although as mental health data pours in, I'm starting to really question if other countries had it right. I believe that our children's mental health is a topic that has not gained enough attention. Our Surgeon General has declared a mental health emergency for kids. Research funded by the NIH has shown that children born during the pandemic score markedly lower on standard measures of verbal, motor, and overall cognitive abilities. And research by the CDC reports a 51% increase in suicide attempts in teenage girls. These examples barely scrape the surface of the broader mental health impacts our kids have faced these past 2 years. I think the New York Times morning newsletter has done a great job putting the many pandemic risks in perspective. For example, David Leonhardt said, the biggest risk to your child's health today almost certainly is not COVID. It's more likely to be an activity that you have long decided is acceptable, like swimming, riding a bicycle, or traveling in a car. I'm not minimizing any of those circumstances, but I do feel like we need to calibrate the way in which we approach everyday risk. And unfortunately, that does include COVID and our children's mental health. And I just do also want to say that I do have young children that cannot receive the vaccine. They are under 5. So I'm not one of those who have fully vaccinated kids and ready to throw them out into the world. I do understand and appreciate everybody's opinions on this, but I think that optional masking is definitely the way to go.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all of our citizens coming and engaging in public comment. At this point, you guys can maybe return to the YouTube channel and we'll continue on with our meeting. Thanks, everyone. All right. So we're going to move on now to our consent agenda. Mike, I wonder if you would like to read a motion for me.
Sure. I'll move to approve the consent agenda of February 9th, 2022, containing the meeting minutes of January 26th, 2022, and the warrants of February 11th, 2022.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none. I vote yes. Sharon?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and Sean.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We now move on to our next matter, and that is our superintendent's update. So to you, Kirk.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, committee, for gathering again this evening. And thank you to our guests that came to speak on the topics of which we're engaging in this evening. Moving through the report tonight, I'll briefly talk to the communications I put out the last couple of weeks. The at-home antigen test program is up and running, and tests have been distributed, and people are using those at home. We have continued with PCR, weekly COVID safety checks at our schools. And so we have a strategy of utilizing both home and school to comprehensively assess our students, to test our students for COVID-19. And having this opportunity really is a major shift. It's a much more comprehensive testing approach when we can provide these at-home kits to folks so that they can be testing at home prior to sending their kids to school. And it also really demonstrates a partnership between school and home on we're in this together. As I've expressed in our data sets before, the overwhelming majority of the cases that are reported on our dashboard are not found through in-school testing. They're found at home and reported to us. And we include that in our data sets so that we can notify families if there was a close contact situation, or as we shifted to the email situation for classrooms recently. So with that, the chart is included on when we would like our families to be doing their at-home testing in coordination with the PCR testing at school. Last Friday, I sent an email to the community regarding my recommendation to consider optional masking at beginning March 7th at Neshoba Regional High School. That was based on when I reported back to you that we received the waiver from the state for the masking mandate. And so it was an effort to continue with that expectation we had before. At the same time, we've been having some discussions about returning to some practices pre-pandemic that we think are important and that we're ready and safe to do. And we're timing those through 3 phases. Phase 1, which we're currently in, allows visitors to return to our schools with the full masking expectations expected. Spectators to interscholastic events, band and music ensembles, faculty meetings returning in person, and multi-class, multi-grade events. At the same time, phase 2, once we start coming back a week after March 7th, that's going to be an opportunity where we can return to volunteerism back in the classroom again. We have not had volunteers in our classrooms for 2 years. And so that would be a landmark time for us. And we can do that under any protocol currently, but we feel like it will be safe to do that at that time. Along with each school looking at easing their protocols and safety plans based upon the local conditions of that school and sort of the physical layout of the school at the same time. Each school has a different approaches that require different treatments. So our agreement with our school leaders was that they would be able to adapt their plans and pull their safety teams together to do that. Also, community events returning and the return of local field trips and community-based programming we feel is safe to begin resuming again. We talked about last time that our out-of-state travel has been closed since the beginning of the pandemic, and we just have not reopened that for this year. So we never closed it this year. We just never reopened it from the time that it was closed. And we're preparing to open up our out-of-state travel programs next year if the leading metrics suggest it's safe to do so. So the last piece that has been a topic of conversation tonight is around optional masking. As noted, the governor came out today to let the people of the Commonwealth know that the masking mandate will be coming to an end on February 28th. Ms. Masterson, if you wouldn't mind pulling the memo down, that would be fine. So with the masking mandate ending on February 28th, that engages the action that this committee took on October 20th to extend the DESE DPH masking mandate in the event that it is expired or withdrawn by the state. So when that happens on the 28th, I want to be clear to the committee, we, by virtue of that vote, will still be under the masking mandate. So in order to change that, some type of action would need to be done by this committee for that to happen. So I would like to say that based on what we learned today and in consultation with my colleagues and my safety team, I was able to send to you all a draft NRSD face covering recommendation late this afternoon, and we included it in the meeting materials. As a result, due to that late notice with the changing announcements that we received today prior to the submission of this report 48 hours before the meeting, I will, Madam Chair, request that we not take the vote to approve flexible masking at this meeting, because I think some due diligence is needed here. Rather, I would ask that we consider that on March 2nd in the school committee meeting after the budget hearing. I know we voted to have that meeting be dedicated to deliberation on the budget as a singular item that night. But given the recent changes and the announcements that have been made, it's my recommendation that we take up action on that evening. And in the memo, as I described to you, that's included in your packets, I had a conversation with some colleagues, and I know other school systems will be presenting similarly to their school committees in the coming weeks. That really, when we talk about it, it's attendance in school that we've been monitoring so closely. And as we've tried to find what are the key metrics to understand what we need to do in regards to offering flexible masking, it comes down to, do we have a lot of kids missing from school? And we've been tracking attendance on the COVID data dashboard all year long. And we've been hovering up above that 90% mark until we met the Omicron surge. And the Omicron surge really showed us what the impact it had on school attendance, void of the severity of the virus that the person may have achieved. Our attendance percentages did dip into the mid 80s. And typically we would expect attendance to be in the 94 to 96% band. We actually, through the high school, you could see earlier in the year, it hovered around the 92% band. So with that, my recommendation is that as we think about flexible and optional masking, we think about the 90% benchmark in attendance as a driving metric for whether we should offer flexible masking or not. So in section 2 of the draft NRSD face covering recommendation, and this is up for your consideration and deliberation. And Madam Chair, I may recommend if we have a policy subcommittee meeting prior to the March 2nd meeting, that any additional crafting that's necessary could be done at that meeting. So in that way, it reads at the moment, on October 20th, 2021, the Neshoba Regional School Committee voted to extend the DESE DPH masking mandate upon the expiration of the state mandate. On February 9th, 2022, Governor Baker announced the state mandate will expire on February 28th, 2022. As a result of the action that the Neshoba Regional School Committee took on October 20th, 2021, the masking mandate shall remain in effect until the school committee takes one of two actions. The school committee shall either rescind the mandate extension passed on October 20th, 2021 for all schools, or shall authorize the superintendent to lift the masking mandate on a school-by-school basis. If the superintendent is authorized to lift the mandate, it will be done once the average student daily attendance exceeds 90% over a 3-week period. So in other words, if we have 3 consecutive weeks of attendance of 90% or greater, once the masking mandate has been rescinded by the state, we would allow those schools to go to flexible masking. And for those that think it's important to continue masking, we will work with the mental health teams, our faculty and staff, to ensure that we have safe, respectable processes for people that make that choice. In the event that the metric were to fall back below 90% or were to any other circumstances warranted, I, as the superintendent, would reconvene my advisory team, consult with the local boards of health, our district physician, and notify the school committee of any intention to reinstate the masking mandate as written. And if that action were taken, we would reinstate for a minimum of a 2-week period or more, if that were the case. So I'm going to pause it at this point in the report because I think it's warranted for any questions that I can answer there that would provide some clarity.
So Kirk, just for starters, I wanted to make sure that we remember we changed the hearing, that meeting date to March 1st, I believe, to avoid Ash Wednesday.
Madam Chair, you are absolutely right. Thank you very much for that reminder.
Okay. And I think over to Sean.
Kirk, only one question and sort of a little bit of a concern. Obviously, the communities are very passionate about and is sort of watching us to sort of see how we react. And I'm very much for the words due diligence. And so that being said, I don't want to sort of lead them into what our decision's going to be when the time comes around for us to make a decision. I think we sort of need to hear out everybody involved. And so I appreciate sort of where you want to sort of go with this, but I think the communities really want to be heard on this. And I think we need to sort of open up that opportunity. But I do appreciate your guidance. And at the end of the day, it's going to be your decision, but we're obviously, we're under the microscope here.
Well, in response to that, Mr. Windsor, it ultimately will be your decision on the pathway to take as a member of this committee, the committee's decision, essentially. So you would either take a decision as a committee to lift the masking mandate, a decision to authorize the superintendent to lift the mandate on a school by school basis based upon the criteria I described, or the third option is take no action at all, of course. And so in making this move tonight, it does give you as a school committee member 2 weeks to hear those voices and to know what people are saying, which is why I recommend we not take any action or a vote this evening, because I think that would still afford us the time to do that, even though we're projecting things are getting better and better. We see that on the horizon. So I think that does give us that time to absorb that, and that information would be important information to deliberate upon when we meet on March 1st.
Is that right? So like the communities have now several weeks to kind of weigh in. Many have already done so by email.
That's right.
But now they will have kind of a little bit more time to see what you're asking us to approve on March 1st.
That's right.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Through the abundance of emails that we got today, I just felt like it was just a comment and then a question for you, Superintendent Downing. I feel like it's important to clarify that the commissioner did not lift the mandate today.
He did not lift the mandate.
Right. He simply stated that it would not be extended. So currently, we are under state mandate until February 28th, at which point it falls back onto the decision at the local level.
That is correct.
Okay, so we got a lot of communication that felt like there was some misunderstanding there. And the second point is a question for you, Superintendent Downing. The two primary actions that we can take. Just, I wanted to see if I understand this correctly. We can either authorize you, the superintendent, to lift the mandate on a school-by-school basis, or simply wholesale rescind the mandate and then it's open up to all levels. Is that right?
That would be correct.
In other words,
Or
if
take no action at all, Mr.
Right. If we choose the latter, meaning we simply rescind the mandate extension, that removes the decision. It takes the decision off of your plate. It simply falls on the school committee. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Just want to be clear. Thank you.
And that's why, Mr. Haresh, that I'm indicating to you my thinking. Because I wouldn't be asking for the authorization if I wasn't being transparent about what that potential decision is going to be.
Yeah. Great. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions, Karen?
And just to clarify, if we fully remove the mandate, then those metrics in terms of attendance, et cetera, would not exist.
They would not apply at all.
It would just be everything is open, no mask, and there is no monitoring in terms of when we may need to remask or any of that. None of that would be in place, correct?
It would, well, it's a little more nuanced than that.
Yeah.
We would still allow for flexible masking and put all the procedures into place to make sure people feel safe and engaged and how in terms of that choice. The return to masking could happen, but it would need, from a policy standpoint, to come back to the school committee for a vote to reinstate it. So if you went with the wholesale decision, you'd have to come back together as a committee to reinstate.
And you would still be using the same metrics to come back to us to ask to reinstate. So you would still be following the attendance and those pieces if it was fully removed. Okay, I just want to make sure people understand.
Yeah, because know that we're just as frustrated with our community when metrics change and recommendation from public health officials change, particularly around athletics. My heart goes all to our families that have children participating in interscholastic athletics, because quarantine recommendations change all the time. We just got notice they've shifted back from the 10-day to 5-day quarantine recommendation for athletics after we had adjusted our policy based on the 10-day recommendation that came out with the onset of Omicron. So it creates this situation where our community feels like the school district is changing the terms all the time, when in actuality, we're enacting what the public health officials are telling us that we need to do for participation in those activities. So I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, Ms. Devine, but I think your point is accurate in that if you go the first option, anything we do after that would require school committee action. If you go with the second option, it authorizes me to be more agile and make decisions in a more immediate fashion in the event that, say, there was a spike that came upon quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Sharon.
I just wanted to build on a little bit on what Sean was saying, that the communities want to be heard. And I think, we're hearing feedback from the communities about, what their wishes are to continue to mask or to let the masking mandate drop. But I'm wondering, have we, or do we have a way to ask our kids? Because our kids and the teachers, they're the ones that are impacted by this every day. They're the ones that are in the buildings wearing the masks all day. And I would be really interested to know what our children think about wearing the masks. Are they hoping for them to go as soon as possible? Are they feeling like, they feel pretty safe with the masks and it's not a big deal? I'm just wondering if that's an option.
Ms. Pock, I can speak to you narratively about that. As part of our work on Neshoba Portrait of a Graduate. I met with the student council at Neshoba Regional High School, 36 students to be exact, and we discussed this very point. It was nearly unanimous in the room from the students that they look forward to and want optional and flexible masking choices. That being said, our discussion evolved into the discussion of, for those that choose, how do we ensure their emotional and social safety if they choose to wear a mask around folks that are not wearing the mask? The school committee was adamant that they would do promotional campaigns and build supportive structures in the school as a student body for that moment, because they want to ensure that their friends are being respected and honored in that scenario as well. So I did have a conversation with the student legislative body at the high school around that very issue.
I think Sonia might be able to weigh in a little bit. That's okay.
Yeah, Kirk said it really well. We have kind of a mixed group of voices, like as kind of echoed in the rest of our community, but there is that like want to take off masks because it really does suck, but there's also like a really big community that just knows like that it is keeping them safe. So I think it's as much of a difficult like decision as it is for grownups, but I would be more than happy to send out a little survey. I send them out a lot just like for other things that could reach a large proportion of the student body if we want to gather some more like direct numbers or just like opinions of the students.
Sonia, you were in that meeting.
Yeah, it was really awesome.
And so would you agree that it was an overwhelming feeling of the group that is something that they desire?
Yeah, to have the option, I think is strongly felt, I think. Yeah.
Thanks, Sonia. So I would defer obviously to Kirk and to Kate to do any data collection so that we can make sure it's reliable. So if that's something that you think you want to do or want to grab onto, please feel free. I'm going to throw it over to Amy.
Thank you. Sorry, I've got a frog in my throat here, but I wanted to thank the superintendent for giving us some time to think about this a little bit more and hear from the community and allow them to weigh in. I guess I just need some clarification from our chairperson or from the superintendent, because in rereading the motion that was made in October 20th, I'm a little confused as to why we're only being given two choices for how to proceed going forward. Because it seems to me right now we have a motion in place that extended the mask mandate for our schools in the event that Commissioner Riley allows the state mandate to expire. That's what we're finding ourselves in the position of.
Correct.
Right? So really it's up to the school committee to decide what action it wants to take now that the mask mandate is expiring. And I mean, if I'm being honest, I think that there's more than two options. Like there's an option that we could just make a motion to authorize the superintendent to, exercise judgment to lift the mask mandate on a school by school basis and leave it at that, or just lift the mask mandate or any number of options. Isn't that, am I misunderstanding?
So I just want to jump in really quick and say, Amy, you're absolutely right. At this point in time, we are under our own self-imposed mask mandate.
Mm-hmm.
And
well,
so
after February 28th, right?
After February.
Like for the rest of the year.
Kind of after February 28th.
Yeah. So, I mean, right now we're under the states, but after that, we're under our own. And so, we have, I think, one clear choice, and that is to just rescind that vote. If we don't like that idea and we want to keep the locus of control closer and manage it slower, we're going to need something else. And so the something else has to have kind of a concrete form. And I think that what Kirk has presented tonight as his policy proposal, it's not even really a policy. It wouldn't necessarily be a policy. It would be kind of a protocol or a procedure of the district, unless we wanted to put it into the policy manual for a temporary time. He needed to construct kind of a system, and he talked to, I think, Kirk, you talked to many other superintendents.
Yeah.
You're trying to create a system that people can depend upon and that you can rely upon based upon metrics. And so this is just what he came up with,
Yeah.
Amy. And the
So,
policy committee can manage it.
Madam Chair, if I may jump in there. That was a product of the discussion. I don't have the minutes of that meeting in front of me, but the discussion was around the authorization piece, and a couple of members shared the notion of authorizing the superintendent. And then a couple of members shared, can we look at some more well-defined criteria for what that would be? So this ultimately is that. And our data dashboard was actually born of that meeting so that we can find the data points that we needed. And then ultimately what we've come to find is all those data points that we created all lead back to one significant data point: kids in school. And that's why attendance is such a valuable metric, I think, in helping assist that decision and monitoring daily student attendance closely. So what I'm offering you tonight is in essence more detail in a response to some of the committee's suggestions on October 20th.
Does that help, Amy?
It does. I appreciate the insight into the structure that would be in place if we rescinded the mask mandate. Just trying to make sure we're not setting up something that's too more complicated than it needs to be, especially if we're giving the superintendent, if we're headed towards giving the superintendent authority to make these decisions.
So can I jump in really quick and ask, Karen, do you feel like and Sean, actually, do you feel like we could set up a policy subcommittee meeting between here and March 1st to kind of hash out some details?
Yeah, I think so.
Sean, does that seem doable at some point?
Does, but for the fact that I'm concerned about, I don't know if we're experienced enough to sort of make policy in regards to something as sensitive as this.
So we wouldn't necessarily change any of the substance. We would just kind of shore up the language based upon a discussion that can ensue now. And so are there any things that you guys would like more information on inside that draft that Kirk put in the meeting materials?
No, I think we should make a decision when the time comes around. That's, I don't want to throw bureaucracy into sort of the process. That's my only concern.
So Sean, are you saying that you would rather just rescind the vote?
No, I'm saying that we should get more information and we should make that decision as a committee.
But that's what we would do on March 1st.
Exactly.
But in order to vote on March 1st, we need something to vote on. And so the policy subcommittee would kind of make sure that what we're going to vote on March 1st is kind of structurally sound.
No, I guess I get what you're saying. I don't want to delay this process. And I think there's a lot of people that are looking to us to sort of take responsibility for this decision. So if we throw bureaucracy in it and we say that there's needs to be 20 decisions, I think that's going to create a problem for the communities.
Can you say more on what you just said there, adding in more decisions?
So when Kirk uses the term due diligence, that sort of indicates to me that he wants to sort of gather information, present it to the board, and then the board makes a decision. That being said, I'm not sure I want to throw policy into the process. I would like to sort of know what the community wants. I would like to know what Kurt thinks we should do. and then for us to sort of own it, put it on our backs, and to sort of make that decision. So that's what they elected us to do.
Yeah, okay. So I think we're on the same page. So the only decision, the only due diligence that Kirk would do is to analyze attendance data. And if at any point the attendance data drops below 90% for 3 consecutive weeks, masking would be reinstated. Is that right, Kirk?
Yeah, and I guess the only reason why I suggested that we visit with the subcommittee is not for drafting school committee policy. It's just a mechanism where we can wordsmith, just to make sure the language is tight. That's all.
Yeah.
So it's not a place to change anything that I significantly have done here, just to make sure the language is tight, everything is worded appropriately. So when ultimately it goes to the board, and if you were to elect to put a motion forward, it's just clear on what the motion is.
Thanks.
So
Go
we're
ahead.
not writing a new policy, we're really just clarifying a motion.
Correct.
it-
And like, so for instance, as I look at this, I have some general language in section 1 around the masking expectations in the schools now. It's not the exact language of the face covering policy we have now. So I think like a basic substitution of that would need to be in order, just to make sure that we're lined up on those things.
Rich, I think you might have had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to support the concept of this going to the subcommittee to just work on the details, right? We can't all work on it at once in one meeting and be productive. So I totally appreciate what Member Windsor was suggesting, but I actually think this is a process that we do all the time, right? We refer things to different subcommittees to work on the details and bring it back to the committee for a vote and consideration. So I don't think this is out of the ordinary, and I don't think we're shirking any responsibility. I don't think we're inducing bureaucracy. I think we're operating like we normally do. And I'm glad we're doing it.
Okay, thanks, Rich. Kirk, would you mind joining us at that policy subcommittee meeting?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do so. Let's just coordinate our calendars to do that.
Okay. Any other comments before we move forward?
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I want to get a sense from Mr. Windsor if my explanation may have clarified his concern or
No,
addressed his concern.
it absolutely does. I think what
Okay.
happens is we're answering to a lot of people, 20 emails that started at noon today that sort of, we have to provide an answer to them, and we have to sort of be responsible to them.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm thinking.
Thank you.
Great. Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've been sitting here listening to this discussion, and I wasn't really planning on saying anything, but this end of this discussion has sort of piqued my curiosity. So I'm a little bit confused now relative to where we're going. If I heard Mr. Windsor correctly, I think he was saying basically this is not something that actually requires referring to the policy subcommittee, and that this is something that we should just take up at our March 1st meeting and vote on it at that time. So if that is in fact what the sentiment of my colleague from Lancaster is, I would support that. I mean, I think that what has been presented to us in draft form is pretty well laid out and appropriately detailed. But if first of all, I guess the question is this in fact a policy of the district, or as you said, Madam Chair, a protocol or procedure that we're doing? And if it is something that needs to go to policy, is that something that the committee has to vote on to refer it to policy? Because I'm inclined to, with all due respect to Mr. Eckel, I'm inclined to embrace what Mr. Windsor is saying. It's been laid out for us. We'll have a couple of weeks to look at this thing. Come March 1st, I think that the public wants to make a decision. I'm just wondering if it goes to policy, is it going to further delay any appropriate decision that we need to make?
So it would not delay. It would just give a little working group time to shore up the language, because, for example, Kirk's section 1 is not identical to our current face covering policy, which is in the online manual. That needs to change. So, I mean, Kirk could change it. He knows where to find the face covering policy, but I was just trying to take it off his plate, give it to subcommittee, and wouldn't cause delay. Go ahead, Kirk. You're muted.
I think I have a very simple and elegant solution to this because it is not a policy. We can insert it, and these are procedures. You can think of it as an addendum to the handbook in many ways, right? So that being the case, I could just work on it with a school committee designee to do any refinement that it needs to be, since it's not a school committee meeting. And that doesn't require a public meeting or a school committee meeting or anything, because we wouldn't have a quorum present. It would just be a designee that I would work with to just make sure it's tuned up and ready for the March 1st. That's all.
And no substantive changes are going to happen?
No substantive changes are anticipated.
Can you guys just give me a thumbs up if you would rather that be the move forward? Thumbs up if you want that, if that's okay with you. Seeing a lot of thumbs ups. All right, so Kirk, there you go. We're going to move on to our teaching and learning update.
Thank you, Dr. McGuire.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to update everyone from the teaching and learning department. So tonight I'm really pleased to give everyone a real-time update on our Neshoba Day of Professional Learning, which the theme we have crafted as elevating voice and embracing equity. So on Friday, the 18th of March, we will virtually hold our annual Day of Professional Learning for faculty and staff. This year's theme, Elevating Voice and Embracing Equity, will focus on 4 strands. And what I've done is I've linked the 4 strands there for you: culturally responsive pedagogy, centering equity and social justice, safe and inclusive learning environments, as well as integrating social emotional learning with academic instruction. If you click on each of those links, they'll take you to a variety of the workshops and presentations that we'll be offering on March 18th. Workshops focusing on equality, safe learning environments, service learning, academic equity will all be offered. The district is also participating in a keynote address from Katie Novak, who is the co-author of our district read Equity by Design. She and her co-author, Mirka Chardin, offer the blueprint for weaving universal design for learning practices with equitable opportunities and outcomes for all students. Katie will also be offering a workshop right after her keynote speech, right after lunchtime. What I've also done there too is I've linked the student design logos, which were created by our high school graphics design class. Dan Berube class participated, like they do each year, in crafting a variety of logos for us. And oftentimes the PD committee and schools pick just one logo, but the logos were just so fantastic this year that we wanted to include them all. So you'll see a variety of the logos in all of the literature that we present and use at this year's Professional Development Day. So we're really excited by the amount of engaging and rich opportunities that we have this year for all of our participants. We'll continue our work with these essential and important topics moving forward. They relate strongly to our district improvement plan, and as well as our visioning moving forward and our strategic planning moving forward in the work ahead. I did just want to give folks a preview on the pamphlet that we have created for everyone. Are we able to see that?
Yes.
So this is the pamphlet and the flyer that will go out to all district employees. We also send it to area schools. We also invite folks from other schools to join us if they so want to join us. And so this will be the flyer that goes out with the theme. And I just also wanted to show you this to give you a sense of the variety of workshops that we're offering. You can see some of the optics and images that some of our students created in the graphics design class. The agenda for the day, we're going to actually be offering 3 workshop sessions this year. A biography on our keynote speaker there, Katie Novak, who is an actual former assistant superintendent in the state of Massachusetts. So a lot of us know her pretty well. And then just to give people a sneak peek at a variety of the sessions that we're offering. So we're offering sessions on anti-racism in the classroom, social emotional learning in the math classroom, Asian American model minority myth, anxiety management, emerging America, LGBTQ, training for coaches and athletics, some mindfulness work in the classroom, We also have someone presenting and doing a simulation on what it means to be homeless and what she does with her students and sleeping in cardboard boxes overnight on the football field and raising money for homelessness in local area shelters. So we have a wide variety of workshops coming on March 18th, and we're really excited about the day ahead. So more to come on that, but as the flyers come out and the registration come out to you folks, we invite you all to join us on the 18th.
Thanks so much, Todd. That's amazing. And those
Thanks.
logos are very impressive.
Yeah, really impressive. We couldn't pick one this year. They were too good.
That's awesome.
Madam Chair, if you'll indulge me, I just want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. McGuire, but also celebrate the hard work that he and the entire teacher and learning team have put into this event. With the change in onset Omicron, we've changed plans several different times. Dr. McGuire didn't blink. They kept their focus, and they really have an outstanding day of professional development plan for our teachers. So thank you, Dr. McGuire, for your hard work.
Yeah, kudos to the administrative team, the teaching and learning team, and really everybody. It is a collective effort, as it is every year. And even when we do it virtually, it'll be a great day. So when we did it that way last year, so we're really excited. So we invite all of you to join us if you can, even for a session or two, or just the keynote speaker if you've got an hour. So, but more to come on that, and I'll be sharing those details with everyone. So thank you so much.
Terrific. Thanks. All right, everybody, we're going to move on to new business, and we're going to pick up high school's program of studies. So to you, Kirk, and perhaps Kate.
I'm having clicking issues. Yes, at this time, I would like to introduce Dr. Kate Boytman, our principal at Neshoba Regional High School, to introduce our program of studies. Dr. Boyton.
Thank you, Superintendent Downing. Thank you, Madam Chair, and hello, everybody. Good to be with you again. This happens to be one of my favorite times of year and favorite presentations to the school committee. I love working on the program of studies. To me, it's a time of opportunity and forward thinking and planning, like all the exciting things that are going to be happening next year at Neshoba. So it's truly exciting time to be working on this. So I shared with you a 10-page change memo that really is an executive summary of the changes to the program of studies. And what I also shared with you, which may have been a little bit different from years prior, is a color-coded version of the program of studies where major changes of language that's getting removed or deleted are in red, and then any language that is new is in blue. So you could really follow the changes versus looking at a track change kind of version. This is a little bit cleaner, so you can see what's going to get removed and what's going to get added. So what I can say is that the program of studies itself at Neshoba has not been substantially updated for many years, at least since 2019, probably earlier than that. It definitely was not updated last year or the year before. So we're looking at 3+ years where the program has not had a really deep review. And so what we ended up doing as a leadership team at the high school was to divide up the program of studies into each of the department areas. Department heads and myself, along with the guidance director, took a deep dive within each department. Departments then went back to their own teachers and departments in department meetings to take a look. And what you find is some of the departments really needed some significant overhaul. And I point your attention specifically to the applied arts program and section. And the teachers in that department really felt that to make a more streamlined, user-friendly, student-friendly, family-friendly version, they really needed to reorganize the entire section, break it out by their separate sub areas. So business and technology, the manufacturing, each section, instead of being all jumbled into one, was separated out into separate categories with those specific courses listed very, very clearly, and then followed by those course descriptions. At the very beginning of the program of studies, one notice that I had was the original program of studies that we were working from had fully 20 pages of information prior to getting to the actual course descriptions. And that seemed a lot, and a lot of the information in that beginning section was redundant. Some of it was really confusing. And so worked with the guidance director to really streamline the wording in the beginning. And so when we do the final edits, it'll be a shorter, more concise, but informational section at the beginning prior to getting to the course descriptions. Another section that needed a little bit more work was the fine and performing arts, where there were some edits that were created there, a new class that was added. And then throughout the document, you'll notice classes that perhaps either have had historically low enrollment over the last number of years or have not run over the last number of years. The collective decision amongst department heads in consultation with myself and the guidance director was to not run those classes that either haven't run or have had historically very low enrollment really over the last 4 to 5 years. So we're looking at well under 10 students enrolled in a particular class, and maybe the decision was made that it didn't run. I think one example I can point to is the Living Locally class in the social studies department. That class really has not run in many, many, many years. One additional thing to mention is language around inclusivity with pronouns, as well as changing anywhere that it's referenced, although this is more common in a handbook, parent to parent guardian, to make that language inclusive. And then reference to attendance, that appears in the handbook and really is not an appropriate addition to the program of studies. So with that, that's sort of a kind of a quick overview of the changes. Following tonight's meeting, the next process prior to publication, it'll go in one additional final review just as a final edit, removing the language that's in red, changing the language in blue to black to match the formatting, and then making sure that there's a final edit for spelling, for grammar, and pagination to ensure that the document is of professional grade and quality prior to going to the printers. We do pride ourselves on printing a hard copy for every single incoming ninth grader so that they get that in hand upon scheduling. And then we have additional copies for any new students and reference for our guidance counselors, in addition to posting the program of studies on our website. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Thanks so much, Kate. This is a tremendous amount of work, obviously. I wonder why nothing's been done in the last 2 years. I'm pretty busy with other things, I think.
There were other things on people's plates. So yeah. And I want to applaud, actually, there were some folks, Todd gave me some feedback on the program of studies Dr. McGuire did, as well as Caitlin Angulo provided some feedback. There had been a review kind of outside of the program, and moving forward, we will be working collaboratively with Dr. McGuire and the Office of Teaching and Learning around the program of studies offerings, in particular, looking at equity and diversity and diversifying our course offerings as well. But that would be in conjunction. And this is, part of an initial process of that curricular review, right?
Right.
Yeah. Dr. Boynton did a fantastic job with this. The opportunity to read through this and the memo that you provide, and I know I shared this with you, but it's just so comprehensive. The detail you provide, I too secretly love doing this work too, and when I used to do it as well. So I can empathize with you. But the memo that you provide and the level of detail for the committee and the community, Dr. Boynton, is fantastic. So really well done with that. I enjoyed reading every part of it.
Are there any other questions or comments about the program of studies before we move on? Amy?
Well, forgive me if I misheard this. Is this coming before our committee again into the next meeting to vote on? Do we need to vote on this, or?
No, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Speaker, that I present, I don't know that there's a vote, is my understanding.
Alita feels like she has some
I actually went back and looked at the last few years. Last year it was not voted on. The 3 years before that it was voted on.
Okay. So we can certainly put this on the next agenda, although I feel like, Kirk, is this something that you guys need to operate from almost immediately?
Madam Chair, if I may, it is based on our scheduling timeline. This needs to get to the printer and published.
Got it.
So our scheduling timeline can be carried out, and it's a really quite tight scheduling timeline given all the steps that have to take place with our grades 9 through 11 and then our incoming 8th graders as well.
I mean, my cursory review, or I mean, I read through everything that you gave to us, but doesn't seem like there are any classes that were cut that are popular or have run as of late. The substantive changes are minimal, if any. I would actually be comfortable voting on this tonight, but would open it up to the committee to see about your comfort level, if it's okay. Maybe I just poll the committee. If you give me a thumbs up that you're okay to move forward to finalize a vote here. If you're okay with it, thumbs up. Amy, maybe some hesitation. What do you think?
No, it's because I haven't had a chance to read it in as much detail as I'd like. And I guess my only question is regarding whether there were substantive changes to any of the curriculum, but it sounds like it's just cleaning it up, getting rid of courses that haven't been offered in a while, and making editorial changes. So I'm okay with
Ms.
it.
Cohen, that would be correct.
Okay, all right, then I can give a thumbs up.
Anyone else? Okay.
Madam Chairman, I just had a point, just a minor point, and forgive me for being a buzzkill here, and I don't wish to, I'm all in favor of voting on this tonight, but I'm looking at the agenda, and this falls under, I believe it falls under new business, and it's information only. So I don't know if we want to go ahead and vote. I'll vote for it if we're going to vote for it, but I'm just pointing out it is information only on the agenda. So.
That is a conundrum. Kirk, what say you?
What I say is I know the information only and the action required is not necessarily, that's a device for locally for our school system to help us just understand and read the agenda better. So I don't know if we're necessarily bound by that on the agenda, but I wouldn't say that I have the legal expertise to say that either.
Madam Chairman, may I just put a point out? Like I said, I am not trying to be a buzzkill, and if somebody moves this, I will vote in favor of it. It's just that from a very technical standpoint, looking at this as just a resident of the district, if I looked at this and I said it's information only, that it's invariably not going to be voted on at the meeting. So there may not be any, if somebody had looked at this or had any urgency in this regard and may have, thought to reach out to us, they might not have thought there was any urgency at this point because it didn't appear that we were going to vote on this tonight. That being said, if somebody wants to move it, I'm going to vote in favor of it, but I'm not moving it.
Kirk, could you, Mary, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say that I'm not sure we have to vote on the program of studies. We are required to vote on the handbook.
Correct.
And so I just think that point should be clarified. That is our charge. The high school handbook, not the other handbooks, but the high school handbook. So I'm not sure that that we need to vote. If it had been done in the past, that's all well and good, but our charge is to vote on the handbook, which has to do with policies. So I'm not sure that it's required that we do this.
I would concur with Dr. McCarthy, and what I would say, Ms. Viverito, is that there's no substantive curriculum changes in the courses of study anyhow. So I don't even think it requires a school committee vote, frankly, for us to proceed in presenting and distributing the material.
I've found the policy, and if you guys will oblige, I will show it to you. Can y'all see? Oh, well, it just disappeared on me. Approval of handbooks, right? No. Program of studies, sorry. I might be wasting your time. Program of studies has to be okayed by school councils, right? Or it has to be reviewed by school council? No, the handbooks only.
Books.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, we haven't not adopted any new curriculum or changed graduation requirements.
So this policy states that the school committee would receive reports, of which you received this evening.
Good job.
I'm going to stop sharing, and we will not proceed with a vote, but just say thank you for your report. Everybody okay with that? All right. So I'm going to thank Dr. Boynton one more time for bringing that to us. Thank you, Kirk, for helping us see the changes that you're making. And we look forward to continued great things from the high school curriculum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. So we have our next matter on the agenda is our Drj presentation. And Alita, would you mind letting everybody in from the waiting room for us? So I'm going to thank Dr. Boynton one more time for bringing that to us. Thank you, Kirk, for helping us. Here. Hi, Lori. I can see you. Alita, would you like to share the Drj presentation for us? And I will start by introducing you all to, one more time, our leader of our school committee advisory, Drj, Lori Burnett. Lori is here to introduce her group and continue to provide us with advice. So welcome, Lori, and all the members of Drj.
All right, great. Thank you so much for inviting us here tonight. We're really excited to have this opportunity to be with you, to introduce ourselves and to share our vision for our work and to respond to any questions you might have. We wanted to just start off with introductions. So I will just start. As Leah said, my name's Laurie Burnett. I'm the parent of 3 students, 2 of which have graduated and 1 who's a sophomore at the high school. My background is also in education with a focus on supporting schools and districts in creating and sustaining educational access, engagement, and success for students who have experienced adversity. And I will now pass it on to Lindsay, and maybe we can go through with our introductions just through the list there that Alita is sharing. I think I saw you there, Lindsay. Yep.
Hi, again, to echo what Lori said, thank you for inviting us tonight to the school committee meeting. My name is Lindsay Shavs. I'm a resident of Stowe. Professionally, I also have a background in education. I've been an educator for the Boston Public Schools for almost 20 years, both as, well, I should say multiple roles, but as a classroom teacher, as an instructional coach, and also as a school leader. My husband and I have 3 girls, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 7-day-old who's in my arms currently as we speak. And none of them are obviously in the school district currently, but they certainly will be. And as parents of 3 girls of color, it's very important to us that our girls feel like they're educated in schools where they feel represented and supported and can thrive. So this work is really important to me, both professionally and personally. So I'm very honored to be part of this advisory team. Thank you.
Willis, do you want to go next?
Good evening. My name is Willis Christopher. I've had 3 kids in the school district. 2 have already graduated. I have 1 left who is a senior. I am a resident of Lancaster. I am a social worker by profession, and right now I'm a clinician at the Perkins School here in Lancaster. And I'm a part of this committee because I want to be there for other people like myself who are coming into Lancaster, and to be there to support them and make a difference. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Greg Denson. I'm a teacher at Neshoba Regional, and I'm part of Drj because my students made it clear that we needed to be doing more and doing better. And so when asked, I accepted the invitation to be a part of this group, and I appreciate you inviting us to be here tonight.
Hi, I'm Kristen Hara. I am also a teacher at the high school. I teach English and have been at the high school since 2003. I'm also a resident of Lancaster and the parent of a fourth grader in Lancaster. So I find this work to be really important to me, both as a parent who wants her child to have the best educational experience possible and kind of the best awareness of the world possible, and as a teacher who is really committed to offering a truly equitable education to all of the students who go through our school system. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for inviting us here tonight. Thank you to the school committee and all the members. My name is Kelly Lawler and I live in Stowe. I have a kindergartner that goes to center school and I have a 4-year-old that will be right behind him. And I am also an educator. I work at Lexington Public Schools. I've been teaching middle school and high school English for the past 12 years. And I've definitely been a leader on my school's equity team and have been doing this work for the past few years. So I think the work that Drj is doing is just really wonderful. And the fact that we can bring you the information that we've been able to pull together, data and research, we just really thank you for this opportunity.
Great, thank you, everyone. We're really excited, as I said, to be here tonight. And as you can probably see, these introductions are really just the tip of who we are. We recognize that that this is a personal and professional journeys that have gotten us to this point tonight. And we look forward to the opportunity to share with you further as we move forward on this journey together. Before going through the full presentation too, we wanted, as we put this together, to just recognize that this work of diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging is complex and multifaceted. We know that we need each other in order to know better and do better. And we also expect that, we're going to evolve as we move forward with this work and look forward to partnering with you as we do this. Over the past year, the Drj committee, we've been listening, learning, discussing, and reflecting around DEIB work and what that looks like in our district. And as a result of this process, we've been working on what our mission really is, and we understand it really to be embedded within the district's mission statement, with our focus to be continually supporting and educating the Neshoba Regional School Committee in its work to ensure that diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging are prioritized, embedded, and practiced within our district for all stakeholders. We recognize that the school committee has certain purviews, and these purviews really focus on budget, policy, and the superintendent evaluation. And thus, we really see our focus as on identifying sort of the next steps that will have the greatest impact and be most sustainable within these arenas. And with that in mind, as we shared with you our memo, the Drj identified the calendar as one opportunity where we can have an immediate impact. We really see the calendar as a document that every family in the district sees and interacts with. And therefore, it sort of provides us with one concrete way to make visible our goals of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. I'm just going to summarize, just because I know we have a long night here, the 3 next slides. But basically, we have 3 recommendations. The first being that we recommend naming all this. That we recommend naming all the state and federally recognized holidays, particularly Indigenous Peoples Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and Juneteenth. Our second recommendation is to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day in place of Columbus Day. And our third is to expand our list of cultural and religious observances. Just a summary of those next three sides, some of the important results that will come from that align with our commitments are that this will make visible the contributions to our society of historically marginalized voices. It will actively demonstrate our commitment to the legacy of these days, and it will send a message of inclusivity, respect, and welcome. It also follows our commitment to an inclusive and accurate teaching of American history. And sort of aligning with the work of the district, these recommendations are also based on research of best practices around culturally responsive strategies that are socially, emotionally informed. Additionally, many other districts have already made these changes, including, our local neighbors of Maynard, Sudbury, and Acton-Boxborough. Potential next steps that the DRJ has discussed include and are aligned with sort of the three areas of this within the school committee's purview. And they include supporting the entry and strategic planning process that's being led currently by the superintendent, particularly as it relates to DEIB work, and the centering of that in all the work that we do in our district. Potential next steps that we've discussed also include continuing our research around best practices that other school districts are doing, as well as those that are recommended by the field of DEIB within education, and bringing those to you for you guys to consider. We also have on our list, identifying, we've started this work sort of to identify professional development resources for you all and for future workshops you might be interested in attending. And of course, we're exceedingly appreciative of all the time you took to respond to our letter. And we look forward to kind of delving into your responses more and identifying resources and supports that we can provide you, your subcommittees, regarding the goals that you identified in those areas. And we also just wanted to say that importantly, along with these action steps that we've shared with you, I just shared with you that part of DRJ's ongoing work is also just to ensure that our recommendations are built from and align with the voices of those with lived experience and from the field of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So therefore, we're really working to have our own meetings. We're striving to have these structures, create structures that are welcoming and inclusive. And we're invested in creating a variety of ways and spaces for anyone to share feedback with us, suggestions they might have, insights, recommendations, etc. And so while this is a work in process, our webpage is currently one resource that allows the community to keep abreast of our work. There you can find our agendas, our minutes, any recommendations we've made, as well as a link to our Zoom meetings. And we definitely welcome anybody to attend our meetings at any time for part or all of them. And we also welcome anybody to send us an email with any suggestions they have. We're at drj@nrsd.net. And we say that to the community too, for anyone who's watching, we welcome your feedback. And so just in conclusion, as our committee members have said, we just want to thank you for inviting us here tonight. We want to thank Sharon for being our liaison. We're really excited to move forward with you on this journey. We recognize it's a deeply human and complex journey, and we just appreciate your commitment to this work. And that is it for the presentation we did. I want to invite, if there's anybody on our committee that wants to add anything that I've left out, and then Leah, pass it on to you. So I'm up first, if there's anybody in the committee to add anything I left out, or. Open up.
Thanks so much, Lori. I have to just say how grateful I am to you, Sharon, and your entire group who's joined us tonight. Thank you so much. This is amazing, and we are really going to benefit from all of your hard work. And so I open it up to fellow committee members if you'd like to say anything or just say thanks. So I think, Mike, you might have had your hand up.
Yeah, you sort of said what I was going to say. I just very much appreciate the time and the energy that you're putting into seeing things that happen at a district level through a very necessary lens. I really appreciate it. And I think it gives us an opportunity to reflect on the way that we do business. And I think it's just another check for us. And I just really appreciate the time and the energy and the suggestions that you've made. So thank you.
Mary.
So I would echo, what Mike just said and what Leah said. To me, you with your introductions, you are a dream team. You are a dream team for DRJ, and I just thank all of you. I do have to say something to one of you, and that's to Lindsay, and to let you know that I was Lindsay's principal. So Lindsay, congratulations on your baby. I've been so impressed with Lindsay since she was a high school student, but certainly in her journey in education and being a principal. I'm so proud of her and so impressed by her. So thanks, Lindsay, for being part of this. 7 days. Yay.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Superwoman. Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, I also want to just say thank you to the DRJ committee for taking the time to make such an excellent presentation. And particularly, I want to thank you for your focus on the calendar, because that is something that has been on my radar for quite some time. And I agree that it is something that every person in the district refers to. It's kind of like a primary source. And without knowing what your recommendations were going to be, I had actually fired off an email to Leah along the same lines as you, with a request to add some more holidays to the list that we currently have on the calendar. And, you know, I think I'd like to ask the full school committee if this is something that we could give to DRJ to study in more depth, because I think there's more that we could do with regard to the calendar to highlight, you know, cultural and religious observations that we are not taking, what's the right word? I don't want to say honoring, but, you know, that we don't give the day off for. I think it's a complicated issue because once it's very difficult, even as I was sending my email to Leah, I was trying to figure out, well, how do we decide which holidays are the right, are ones we should include without knowing more about our community. So I feel like this is work that would be really good for the DRJ to take on if that was something you were amenable to.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah.
I think that we are going to vote on the district calendar today. And so with DRJ's current recommendations, perhaps we can move forward there. And then DRJ, you can kind of circle back on this too, because although we really need to approve the dates tonight, we can continue to enrich that calendar over the next couple of months with more and more input. So I think, Amy, that's a definite possibility. Yeah. Perhaps when we get down to that agenda item, can we maybe look into that more? And I feel like, Lori, you and your group are just really so willing to do this work. So I don't imagine you would say no to a future request on calendar help.
Right. I think the group has begun thinking about that too. We did provide some links to some lists that districts have generated for what we want to include. And we have also discussed that it's also important to be inclusive, even whether we know if there are existing students that are observing or not, that just sending the message that these matter to all of us is an important message to send, and it is an inclusive message to send. So most certainly appreciate very much your bringing that up, Amy, and we're happy to move forward on that too.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you.
Fozzie's making an appearance.
Yeah.
Kurt. Kirk, I think you might be muted. And your camera is also off, perhaps on purpose, but.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I do have my camera off for the moment. Thank you. I do want to thank Lori and the entire DRJ committee. They invited me to a recent meeting, and it was a valuable use of my time as we had some discussions. And certainly looking at issues of diversity, equity, inclusion are going to be a major theme that rise up from my entry plan findings on March 23rd when that's presented. So I just want to say thank you to the group. And in regards to the comments on the calendar, I think it's accurate to say we could approve the dates and then we could add the, forgive the pun, the color to the calendar later in terms of describing our holidays as we gain advisement. So I don't know if I'd recommend that we turn this over to DRJ. What I would recommend is that we take their guidance and their advisement under consideration when making decisions about the calendar, because the calendar is a major responsibility of the school committee.
Very good. Thank you so much. I'm just going to make this a little bigger. Any other questions or comments for Dear Jay? So, Dear Jay, our time is always short in the year, as everybody in education is well aware, but it would be wonderful if we could have you perhaps circle back to us at least one more time before the year is out, come back and visit and give us more advice around how we can always do better.
Sounds great.
So thanks so much, everybody.
All right, thanks for having us.
Have a great night. That was awesome. All right, we are going to move now to our next matter of new business. That's the communication subcommittee survey. And I just wanted to be very blunt with you all. We are a little bit behind, but not by much. So I always just like to keep my eye on the clock. So just a quick note to all of my future agenda item friends, including myself. So go ahead, Amy.
Is that your kind way of saying not to talk too much?
Wrap it. No, it's largely me. So I'm talking to myself.
All right, then I'll try to keep this short and sweet. The communications subcommittee has spent a good portion of the last few meetings developing a survey to be sent out to parents and caregivers from the superintendent's office. And we collaborated with the superintendent on this. And it's ready to go. And I think probably will be sent out within the week. We're hoping to be able to gather the feedback in time to have data for the superintendent to meet with the website developers. And one of the goals of the survey is to ask about how useful the website is, what information people are looking for on the website, and there's other goals as well. So that's my short and sweet version. I don't know, Superintendent Downing, if you'd like to add something.
I want to add my apology to you, Ms. Cohen. With the announcement that came out today and shifting of agendas, I neglected to push the survey out. It's going to go out first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Amy. That's awesome. That's really awesome. I got a chance to kind of preview the survey, and I think it's really, really rich, and it's going to produce a lot of great information for the committee and the district.
And I want to thank Ms. Cohen for leading that effort, because as you know, that's one of my goals. And so she's been a good partner in how we're trying to collect good information and understand our communication channels well. So Ms. Cohen, thank you for your efforts.
Awesome. Without objection, I wonder if we can move the subcommittee goal check-in to the subcommittee reports. At the time that the subcommittees report, I'll ask you guys to just add your 2 cents on how your goals are progressing. Not seeing any objection, so we shall do that. Let's move over to section D of the policy manual. This tonight constitutes our second reading, and therefore we can take a vote to accept if you see fit. Is that right? Karen, help me.
No, this is our first one, Leah, on this one.
Thank you, ma'am. So first reading. Just to give you a heads up, the budget and warrant subcommittee took a pass at this, and the policy subcommittee took a pass at this and has reviewed it. So a good portion of us have already looked at it, but in this first reading, does anybody have any feedback on that red line version or the clean one that policy can kind of deal with at our next subcommittee meeting? Mary?
So DCB, I think it is. I just don't have it up in front of me on the timeline for the budget timeline. I spoke to Dorothy Presser today because what it says there is something we talked about in our last at our last meeting when we were looking at the date of March 15th, which it says in the regional agreement. And then I let people know that what Mass General Law 70, I'm not going to remember the section off the top of my head, but what we have to do as school committee is approve a budget 45 days prior to the first annual town meeting. And Bolton, and anyway, so what I figured out was that March 15th was probably a safe bet because that would give 45 days before that first Monday in March, which is Bolton and Lancaster's. But to be more precise, it should say, okay, good. It should really say what the law is. And so there's nothing about December 31st, nothing in the Mass General Law. So I talked to Dorothy Presser today, and she's looking into this. That reference to December 31st, and the selectmen have authority to impose a date, may well be, she said, for municipalities, but not for a regional district, because we have from Jesse what it says in terms of the timeline. So what she suggested was that we not vote on that. We're not voting anyway, but just hold on to this, and that it would make more sense to put in what it actually says in Chapter 71. Now, this is what MASC 2021 says. They say as early as December 31st. I can't find that date anywhere. Dorothy's looking into it because this might very well not be the right language for us. But I will keep on this, and I will, by the next time we talk about this, even before that, in meeting materials, I will have something from Dorothy, and I'll have the right language in this. But anyway, I hope you understand what I was talking about. If we looked at our current policy, it says that the budget has to be adopted by March 15th. But I do think it's because of the 45 days, but there's nothing about December 31st. So that's what Dorothy Presser, our field representative, is looking into. Why does it say December 31st? She doesn't know, but she's going to talk to Tracy Novak and find out.
Awesome. So Karen, maybe put an asterisk next to this one so that we know we need to kind of circle back on it. Because I can't, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you all. Anybody have any other comments on this for policy? Seeing none, I'm going to move. Oh, Joseph.
Sorry, Madam Chairman, I couldn't get to my raised hand icon fast enough. Who's red, who's green? Who did what? I saw that there was some red lining, there was some green lining. So you said that different subcommittees had a different had passes at this. So,
budget and warrant and policy did none of these changes. All of these changes are coming directly from MASC. I honestly don't know why some of it is green. Karen, do we know why some of it is green?
No, I actually Lita had helped me because I couldn't get the redlined version to download properly. So this is the one that she added to the meeting materials.
Yes.
No, it was all red last time when we reviewed. It was not green.
I thought so too. So Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. Where does it? I'm concerned over the fact that the Board of Select Persons has the authority to impose a date for the delivery of the budget, and that's kind of in violation of our tri-town agreement, isn't it?
Go ahead, Mary.
So that's exactly, Steve, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And that's where if there's some place in the law, which I have read and reread and gone to DESE and looked at what they said, and this doesn't make sense because we wouldn't know what local aid is, et cetera, this December 30. So it is that other part of it's not just December 31st. It's the other language that, that they have the authority to impose. So I didn't want to make a big deal out of that because I think that this is probably not applicable to us. But yes, that was what got me calling Dorothy Presser today to say, what? Yes. So we'll find out, Steve. I'm with you.
So Joe, we haven't really addressed your issue. What's crazy is that I just went back to the original one. I downloaded it one more time and it's all blue.
Okay. When I saw the different colors, I thought that, well, green might have been budget and warrant, money and whatnot, and red might have been policy. But I actually did have one other comment I wanted to make, Madam Chairman.
Oh, wait, Joe, before you say that, let me tell you, we'll figure it out. We'll ask the question and bring it back.
No, I just was curious as to who did what. I was like, I just wanted to see how did they do it? But apparently it was it wasn't done that way. So the one comment I did want to make was, and it just follows up on, I don't want to belabor this, but it follows up on Dr. McCarthy's comments. And one of the things that I think that there's some confusion over, and Mrs. Maroney is looking down at something, but I'm going to ask her to put her head up and tell me if I'm wrong anywhere in what I'm about to say here, is that, going back to this March 15th date, at the last meeting, I said that it was by statute. And what I meant by that was, and maybe Dr. McCarthy misunderstood what I was saying, is that pursuant to the statute, we are compelled to have a budget approved no later than the 15th by virtue of the fact that the statute says 45 days before the first of our sending communities town meetings, which by bylaw in all three communities is the first Monday in May, which could invariably be May 1st. So to give 45 days, you would have to have it by the 15th because March has 31 days. That's 15 days from the 15th plus 30 is 45 full days before the deadline. But one of the things that we didn't broach at the last meeting, and it hasn't been broached here, is that regional schools districts rely on local aid, and that's all part of the state budget. And it's not part of the general laws of the Commonwealth, but it's in the Massachusetts State Constitution that requires the governor to present his budget, generally speaking, by about the third or fourth week of January. So if you go back and look at our regional school agreement and you look at the way that the 2003 Amendment Committee had crafted that, I'm sure it was probably the same before that, you essentially have a 45-day period after which the state budget is presented for the district to essentially craft and prepare its own budget. And then you have that deadline for approval, and you have additional 45 days after that for the communities, our finance committees, our select boards, our constituents to review and to assess our budget. So I always thought that the way that the budget provision under the regional school agreement was crafted was elegant in its simplicity and its equity. It's 45 days from the date, generally speaking, that the governor presents his state budget, and then 45 days for our local communities to vet the budget. So with that said, I will say no more. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for that clarification, Joe. And we will wait to hear from Dorothy on that one element and find out why the document is rainbow colored. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we will move on. Thank you very much for that. Our next item is to approve new members to the school building committee. So this is to Kirk or to Joe? Or both?
I defer to Superintendent Downing. He did all the legwork on recruitment. So I'll leave it to my chief recruiting officer.
Attorney Gleason, I was about to defer to you. You beat me to the punch, you devil. So thank you very much. No, last night at the Neshoba Building Committee meeting, the school building committee, the committee voted to recommend to the greater school committee the addition of Tanya Rich, Lancaster resident and Neshoba employee, as the voting representative or voting chair for the town of Lancaster. That was an open seat that we had that represented a vacancy from a voting share in the town of Lancaster. And also Don Lowe, who was a non-voting participant and is acting in place of Orlando Pacheco, who was originally the town administrator representative that has since left the town of Lancaster. So the committee voted to recommend those two to add to the greater committee. We are looking for this committee to approve that so we can submit those changes to the MSBA.
I'd move the recommendation of the superintendent, Madam Chair.
I will second that. Mike, Joe beat you to the punch on the motion. Steve, discussion.
I would like to amend the motion to have a separate vote on each of the two individuals.
I'll second that motion, Madam Chair.
Okay. And I seconded it, and so I'm okay with it too. So now what, Joe?
Yeah, Steve wants to vote separately on these, so I'll actually move to approve Ms. Rich as a voting member of the Neshoba Regional School, Neshoba Regional High School Building Committee.
Okay, and I second that. So any discussion on Ms. Tanya Rich? All right, let's go to the vote. Sharon?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Joe?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes, ma'am.
Mary?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Brett?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
All right. Joe, would you like to go again?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I will at this time move for the appointment of Don Lowe, Town Administrator for the Town of Bolton, as a non-voting advisory member to the Neshoba Regional High School Building Committee.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Very good. We'll move to the vote. Sharon?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Joe? Did I hear you, Joe? I'm sorry.
I apologize. Yes, ma'am.
Rich?
Yes, sirree.
Mary?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Steve?
No.
Amy?
Yes.
Brett?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everybody. That takes care of that matter of business. Just to be clear, we do also have one additional vacancy on that committee that we will hopefully seek to fill next time around. Great. So we will now move on to our business and operations report. And again, Pat, your patience is epic.
Thank you. I'm going to update the budget for you right now. I'm going to share my screen. So I'll be pretty quick with this. The budget drivers that was presented on January 22nd look like this. The budget drivers right now look like this. We've gone from 7.2% to a 6.84% increase. The changes in the drivers since 122 are as follows. Salaries for existing personnel, there's a decrease of $169,077, a 0.4 FTE reduced, data entry resolved, a reduction of one nurse FTE, 1 year only due to COVID, and $105,000 in the substitute line because of grant funding. As far as insurance and benefits, there's a decrease of $83,321, and the forecasted increase was 7.5%. The actual increase is 5.4% with our new rates in place. Revenue as presented on 122 is as follows, and the updated revenue, as you can see, has increased. Chapter 78 increased, of $1,260,784. And also an increase of charter school revenue of $53,160. I'm going to briefly go over some of the impact of the changes in the Chapter 70. As you can see on your left, the presented minimum local contribution for the towns, and on the right, the updated amounts. You can see there's some significant change there. And again, as presented on 122, these were the assessments.
Ms. Maroney, would you mind expanding that a little bit by increasing the percentage magnification? It's right in the center above.
Sure.
Thank you. That's perfect.
Okay.
Because I think it's important for our committee to see, if you go back to the previous one, Pat.
Yes.
It's important for our committee to see that this is what we presented, knowing that the percentage increases were not a reality for our towns when we presented the budget to you in January. And we want you to see how those percentages have shifted since we got our Chapter 70 funding and have had some adjustments to both drivers and revenue.
And here are the new assessment rates with those changes in place.
So you can see the assessment rates have dropped significantly, 5 points or greater for each of the 3 towns.
And what's still on deck for us, the final Unit A and Unit C contract negotiation rates, and an up-to-date increase in transportation, and that is regular transportation.
Ms. Maroney, you mean a decrease? We anticipate a decrease.
Decrease, I'm sorry.
Yes. As a result of transportation negotiations.
Correct. Does anybody have any questions?
That's great. Thanks, Pat. Any questions, anyone? Mike.
Thank you for sharing this, Pat. And this is either for you or for Superintendent Downing. I'm wondering, now that some of our income has been clarified and our Chapter 70 money has come in, what are some other, I guess we'll call them revenue streams that might impact those total assessments?
Yeah, that was the last slide. The two major factors, the last slide is the Unit A and C negotiations, along with the negotiations of the transportation contract. Those are both significant pieces that have to be finalized. We are going to be in our negotiations next week with the Teachers Association, both Units A, NRA, both Units A and C together. So that's nice. We'll be able to work on that together. And we do anticipate that we should be able to come to a decision pretty quickly with that. That's our hope. And while we have been negotiating back and forth with D-Bus on the transportation contract, we don't have a signed contract to date, so we can't include those numbers quite yet. But we do know that we're going to see a decrease in that driver, which will impact lower the assessments for each of the towns.
I actually had one more question, if that's okay.
Of course.
I noticed that, oh shoot, my screen just went. I noticed that insurance, I think it was rates. I'll just kind of scroll down here.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like there was a number for insurance that actually dropped. I'm wondering if you could explain that.
Yes, I can explain that. Last year, after the budget was voted, Maya, who is our broker of insurance, gave us what they called a 1-month holiday from health insurance. So that reduced the actual in fiscal year 21 significantly. So it made it look like it was actually a reduction. Does that make sense, Mike?
Yeah, that does make sense.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions for Pat on the budget? All right. Thank you very much, everyone. We can move now to
Ma-
the. Oh, yeah.
Madam
go-
Chair,
Yeah.
if I may use this as an opportunity to just let the community know that the three FinCom chairs from our three towns are going to be hosting a joint meeting. We're scheduled to meet this Wednesday, a week from today. We're hoping to start a new sort of additional method annually to our budget season, in that each town would rotate hosting a meeting of the FinComs for the superintendent to present, and the budget and operations director to present the budget to the FinComs jointly to receive their questions and answer any inquiries they may have. So we're launching that this Wednesday. I think it's a great step for our school system, a step of transparency and in getting to understand how our budget is crafted. And then we will rotate it town by town, year over year.
Kirk, that is going to be on the 16th.
The 16th. And I would encourage our committee to attend that. It is posted by the town of Bolton. This is not our meeting to post. It is the town of Bolton's meeting to post. And Mr. Chair Boyle has done so. So we've been in communications and really look forward to a meeting of good inquiry, possibly productive struggle in understanding how we're going to come ultimately to the budget that we put before our towns.
That's great. Thanks a lot for that. All right, maybe we can move on to the next item here, Rotary Club book donation
Okay.
acceptance.
So in your packet, there was a letter requesting the acceptance of a generous donation in the form of library books for circulation for Mary Rowlandson Center and Florence Sawyer Schools, valued at $1,540. And this donation comes from the Neshoba Valley Rotary Club.
Fantastic. Mike, would you like to perhaps make a motion?
Yes, before I do that, I just wanted to let you know that Bill Wilkinson's a member of the Neshoba Rotary, wanted to present. I did inform him that he needed to be on the agenda tonight, but he did want to sort of share the donation and the progress of that with the committee this evening. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to, but I will move to accept the donation from the Rotary Club of Neshoba Valley in the form of books to put into our library circulation at our elementary grades. The value of this donation is $1,540.
Second.
Very good. Thanks, Steve. Any discussion? Kirk?
Yeah, I would like to let the committee know that whenever we accept donations, particularly around books, we have a filtering process for that operates through the Office of Teaching and Learning and Dr. McGuire. So Dr. McGuire worked with the building principals to examine the titles that would be brought into our libraries, and they meet our expectations and our guidelines and our recommended titles. So I just want to assure the committee that when we do receive donations, we have a vetting process to ensure those donations match our curriculum and the goals we're trying to achieve.
Okay. Ready for the vote? Myself, yes. Sharon?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Brett?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
And Sean?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. And now to the employee insurance update.
I think that I addressed that in the slide presentation, but if anybody has any questions about that, I don't think there's anything other than that.
Okay, great.
And I have one other thing.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not on there. I would like to let the committee know that I have submitted my letter of intention to retire to the superintendent. I will be retiring October 30th. I want you to know that it has been a pleasure to serve the students
and the staff and administration of this district for 19 years. And I wish you well in the future. Thank you.
Gonna make us all cry, Pat.
Now Anne Marie's gonna cry.
Right? Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for everything.
I
that you've done.
tried.
Oh, it's no use. Just let it fly. We all
Madam
love
Chair,
you.
I would like to be on the record of saying that when Ms. Maroney approached me and submitted her letter of retirement, I would not accept it. And then I had to have a meeting with Ms. Stoika, and she informed me that I could get myself into some hot water if I didn't honor the retirement of Ms. Maroney. And I say that with all respect and gratitude, Pat. Your tutelage in bringing me along and understanding the complexities of budgeting in a regional district has been nothing but superb. And I want to thank you for your mentoring and guidance of me, but also congratulate you on what's going to be an awesome retirement.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Go ahead, Steve.
Congratulations, Pat.
Yes,
Thank you.
as being
Thank you.
involved with the budget and finance section of this school district for 4 of my last 5 years on the school committee, I have to let you know, this woman is amazing. Her depth of knowledge, her understanding of what we need to function as a school committee, and her dedication is just non-paral.
Thanks, Steve. Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that too. I mean, there's been no shortage of people looking at the budget. Like, we're one of the few regional districts in the area that has an audit advisory committee, which I'm on. I'm also on the budget warrant committee with Pat. There was a forensic audit when we switched before Brooke came on, and things have been running smooth. And you don't often get a lot of credit, in my experience, for making things run right. And so I just want to commend Pat for the good job that she's done. And it's easy to perhaps overlook all the great things that you did. So kudos. I wish you the best.
Thanks, Rich. Okay. Well, Pat, you don't get to run away yet. We have you for some time.
Just a few more months.
Well, thanks again, Pat. We appreciate you. Okay, on that note, we're going to move on to our student representative report. Speaking of patience, thank you so much, Sonia and Dan. I hope this has been as thrilling for you as it is for us, but it's time to give your report. What can you tell us?
We have a few things. Dan, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I apologize for being late today, by the way. So first off, we have a chess club where I'm planning on getting a chess club started because I thought to myself, wow, there's no chess club at the school. I was surprised because I saw some people playing chess in study, and personally, I really like chess. So I decided to try and get that started. So that's in the works. Another thing is that the Nordic Ski Team is going to states, I've heard. I've got a few friends on there, so I'm excited for them. And on that note, I will toss it over to Sonia.
Awesome. Yes, in other sports related news, our indoor track team just had our league meet. The boys came in first. It was really exciting, and the girls took second in the league. Our swim team, there's like countless records being broken, and they're working really hard. It's really awesome to see. There's a basketball game happening right now, so I'll be updating myself shortly. But they also had the great opportunity to play at TD Garden, which was really cool and a great experience for our team. In other news, the Chicago musical rehearsal is in full swing. They all got their pictures taken today, their headshots, which is exciting. Things are coming along. The student council also got, well, Kirk touched on this, but the great opportunity to connect with him and talk about the portrait of the graduate, which was really nice to hear from our administration, and just having that presence at Neshoba and the chance to talk about like who we want to be as a Neshoba community in a really real way. It was really powerful. And I think a lot of the students that were there really felt that. And we got to talking. This reminded me about a few meetings ago talking about social justice, I guess, in today too, but we kind of delved into that. And I just wanted to also do a shout out to our English department, who is just continuously like really excelling at just improving every just aspect of like addressing social justice. They're creating a really good environment that students are able to like have those conversations. And then another thing, the broadcast is continuing to bring students together and having a really nice space to hear about our community. And then I'm excited to hear about the different perspectives students are going to have on the mask mandate discussion. Just because it was so recent, I haven't really, like, the fresh stuff hasn't really settled in, but I'm sure there will be hubbub about that, and we can come back with a more holistic view of what students are feeling. And that, I think, is, well, everything.
Thanks, Sonia. Thanks, Dan. Any questions or comments about the student representative report? All right. We really appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much. Your point of view is super valuable.
Just a good job.
All right. So our unfinished business is the district calendar. So we want to perhaps have a motion to, or rather maybe we just have a little bit of discussion on this first. Anne-Marie, go ahead.
Want to take a moment to point out the 3 changes in the calendar that's in your packet tonight from the version that you had at your last meeting. At Amy Cohen's wonderful suggestion, we highlighted the first and the last days of school for the students, August 31st and June 15th. You'll see that Alita has circled those dates on the right-hand side listing of dates in red. And then on the calendar part, she also circled them in red and put the little text bubble like you would see in a cartoon character talking that says first day of school and last day of school. So I think those 2 changes really make those important dates pop right now. Thanks to Amy Cohen for the suggestion and Alita for the implementation. Second change is in the listing of dates on the right-hand side on January 25th. We added that as pre-K registration day, a day when there are no pre-K classes because they're registering the next year's pre-Kers. Lastly, on the far right bottom, where it says high school only, we added the dates of the last quarter, the first, second, and third, and fourth last quarters. Those are the only 3 differences between the calendar you have before you tonight and the one at your first reading 2 weeks ago. Thank you.
Go ahead, Amy.
I just wanted to thank the calendar committee for making that change. I think as a parent, it's a lot easier to see when school's starting and ending now. Simple but effective. I just have one other question that I was hoping to get some clarification on, and I got an email about this as well from somebody else in my community, so I thought it was worth bringing up. The first week of November, second week of November, the first full week of November is showing an early release day on November 7th, no school on the 8th, and then no school on the 11th. Is the comment that the feedback that I received was, is there any flexibility to switch the early release day there, since that week has 2 days off and a half day?
The teachers generally like to have the conference days back to back in the fall, because they get their things ready and, when the parents come in, they don't have to put them back, and take them out again like they do in the springtime by contract. And that November 8th, you remember from last time, is the voting day. So we needed to have no school on that day anyway. So we recognize that surely as something less than an ideal week, in a less than ideal month too, because it's got the, 2 weeks later, it's got the Thanksgiving holidays. But really, there were some bad options, and we thought that was the least bad of them.
Amy, your constituent was saying that they wanted the 7th and the 8th to be separated into different weeks.
I think they were asking if those 2 days could be switched, and my response was, I'm pretty sure November 8th is a voting day, but I also wondered if November 7th, the half day could be moved to a Friday, or if there was just any flexibility, because, from a parent's point of view and from a student's point of view, that's just a lot of disruption in 1 week. So I didn't know if it was a discussion that the calendar committee had already had, and this is where you landed, or if this just was something that didn't get picked up on.
Go ahead, Kirk.
That is the conference time, and I think it's critical, particularly for our teachers as well, to be able to do that well, do it consistently. It's important to have those days tied together. We're in the quirkiness because I believe it's Veterans Day that follows on the Monday, right? Am I correct am I thinking of the wrong month?
Yeah.
Is Veterans Day always the Thursday?
Yeah. So anyway, it's going to be important to keep those 2 days tied together for those purposes. It's a large lift to get ready to prepare for conferences and deliver that. So I think it's important that we maintain that. Oh, yes. Thank you.
Any other comments on the calendar as it is? Keeping in mind that what we're being asked to vote on today is not inclusive of DRJ's recommendations, those additions, Kirk or Anne-Marie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, those additions or kind of clarifications we can add as the next couple of months go along.
Yes, correct.
Stop sharing. Perhaps we can have a motion on this, Mike.
Sorry, my children just arrived home. I'm distracted. I move to approve the 2022-2023 district calendar as presented.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? All right, we'll vote. Sharon.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Brett.
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
Sean.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Amy.
Yes.
Rich.
Yes.
And Joe.
Yes.
I think I said yes. I'll say it again. Mary, did I get you? Thank you. Ready,
Madam
everybody?
Chairman, before you move on, while we're on the subject, I just had a quick question, and it pertains to the calendar and it pertains to the calendar committee. And it's always been a little bit of a mystery to me. So perhaps Ms. Storka could enlighten me. So going back to what you just said about, the recommendation of DRJ, would not those recommendations first be vetted by the calendar committee and then brought to the district committee? Or because it seems like we're sort of overstepping the calendar committee, and I know that Ms. Stoika always mentions the names of each individual on that calendar committee every time she presents, and I keep hearing the same names over and over again each year. And I'm just wondering if this is something that before that comes back to us, whether or not the calendar committee should be weighing in on this as well.
Actually, by school committee policy, we're always very mindful not to step beyond our bounds. Really, by the school committee policy, I think it's ICA. Our task really is to give the dates that school's going to be in session and school's not going to be in session. So I would almost feel, and I would certainly stand corrected by my boss, but that really, once we've done what we've done tonight, that's our charge. And then what happens after that happens after that. Kick me under the table if we were in person, Kirk.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't kick you under the table. I would simply add on to that. it is the superintendent that will bring forth a recommendation based upon consultation with those groups. So there's some work to do behind the scenes to apply that, and then I would bring that forward at a future school committee date. So the calendar committee per se is done with establishing how the calendaring needs to land. When it talks about how we express our values through the calendar, that's me.
Great, Kirk. So Drj's presentation is in your hands, and we
Yes.
look forward to your
Yes.
recommendation.
And I
great.
look forward to working with them.
Thank you. Let us know if you need any help, of course. All right, everybody. So we're going to move on to our subcommittee reports, and we're going to start with budget and warrant. And what I would like to say is that as budget and warrant, or as people, as people update me on the progress on their goals, I'm taking notes on the spreadsheet that is in the old meeting materials, just to kind of document the progress that each subcommittee is making. So budget and warrant, you can give us your update. Make sure you include that goal progress on your goals.
We have no report tonight.
Awesome. And would you like to tell me a little bit about your goals?
No.
Would
I can speak to the goals.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
One of the things that we've been tossing around is that the budget is the financial expression of the goals and the values of the district. As chair, Mr. Rubenstein has done a really great job of inviting members of the community, primarily from the FinCom, to keep them abreast of how the budget is evolving. Ms. Maroney has done a great job of keeping us kind of connected to things. We, as always, continue to look for the connections between the school improvement plan and the budget, but Superintendent Downing has always been a part of the conversation as well. So as a new member, I can say personally that I've been really pleased with the progress that we've made this year, and I think that we are building towards those goals.
Okay, thanks so much, Mike. Let's see here. We shall move next to communication.
Okay, I've got that spreadsheet open too, Leah. So we have made progress towards our goal of issuing, well, actually, we are going to be issuing our data-driven community feedback survey, hopefully tomorrow or by the end of this week. And the survey was really developed to help us get some feedback on the direction we should be going for the rest of the year. So it will include questions that ask parents and caregivers on their interest in some of the initiatives that we have identified, including things like allowing a subscription to school committee meeting dates, agendas, calendars, minutes, making it easier to subscribe to the digital calendar that the district has, improving the building project website is actually something that we have already made progress on, and trying to see if there's anything else on here. Our main goal as a subcommittee this year was to improve communication by broadening and improving access to district-wide information. And that's really what our survey is hoping to get some feedback on, how we can do that, whether we're already doing it well, and where we can improve. The other initiative I forgot to mention that we are asking for input on in this survey is the idea of having office hours prior to meetings by school committee members. And we hope that by getting some data, some feedback on that, we could come back to the committee with more information on whether that's something that seems like people would be interested in. So it's a long way of saying that we developed a survey and we're going to send it out.
That's awesome. I look forward to it. Thanks, Amy.
Mm-hmm.
So to the school building committee updates.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The school building committee met yesterday. The purpose of our meeting yesterday was twofold. One was that we had established that we are going to be meeting from this point forward the third Tuesday of each month, but because of the upcoming February vacation, we moved it to the 8th this week. But we also did that for purposes of securing a recommendation for 2 new members to the committee, which we've already voted on this evening. And as the superintendent indicated, or I think the chair indicated that we will be coming back with a 3rd recommendation at our next meeting to fill out all the vacant spots in the on the committee at this point. On that note, I do think it's a long slog for a lot of these people who are on this committee. So there will be over the next couple of years some attrition. So that is to be expected. As far as substantively what we achieved last evening was we had a presentation by Kessel Booz Associates relative to essentially the next 3 steps or 3 modules in the MSBA process, which are the feasibility study, schematic design, and the funding of the project. And those will be taking place over the next year or so. We concentrated more on the feasibility study, which is basically broken into 2 submodules, which is the preliminary design programming and the preferred schematic. As far as the actual visioning process is concerned, that starts tomorrow morning promptly at 8 a.m. at the Wedgewood Country Club in Stowe. Superintendent has put together a visioning team. They'll be working on creating a vision for the new high school in the district. I just wanted to give the committee an update as far as what you can expect in the near future. Right now, February is going to be our visioning month, but as we move forward, we will be looking to schedule in conjunction with our OPM and with our architect some public forums. And right now, the architect is envisioning that perhaps sometime around the last week of March, we would have a public forum on the existing conditions of the district. The end of April would be the educational visioning. Sometime in June would be the options review, and then in September, project update. As far as our architect is concerned, they are scheduled themselves for presentations before this committee. They are looking at June to present to the full committee, as well as September. And Madam Chair, that pretty much brings up to speed where we are with the building project.
That's a lot. Thanks, Joe. I just want to recognize that it is 9 p.m. and without objection, I would like to continue the meeting a little bit beyond 9 p.m. here as we wrap up our subcommittee reports. Any objections? Okay. All right, so over to personnel. Mary and I did some work today in personnel, and we're doing a really nice job with our goals. We have our major goals were professional development for the committee around superintendent evaluation. And as you guys know, we've implemented 2 of those professional development opportunities. We're in the process of planning the 3rd, which will be around Kirk's formative evaluation, which is coming up in March. And then we're planning for Dorothy Presser to come and visit with us to give us a brief training on the summative evaluation process. We've also been working with Kirk, or we worked with Kirk to help him craft his goals and start working toward that evaluation at the end of the year. And I'll throw it over to policy.
Policy met last week, but really we just had to do the one policy that we presented tonight. And in terms of progress on our goals, we have reviewed several policies so far, which we have already presented. And I know, Leah, you were actually going to reach out to Lori after our last meeting about sort of how we can work more with DRJ moving forward in terms of when we have policies that we may need them to maybe provide some insight on. So that would be what we would work on moving forward.
Yeah, and I did speak with Lori before she built that presentation with her group. And that was one of the things that we definitely talked about. And that was in her kind of future steps diagram as something that they're going to help us with in reviewing the policy manual. And of course, Sharon is there as our steward on that front. All right, let's go over to audit advisory. Any updates, Rich?
We have a full slate of folks. We're just trying to find a time to get together, approve some minutes, and look forward.
Great, thanks. And Sharon, I know that we had a large presentation from DRJ, but anything that you wanted to update us on?
I just want to give a shout out to Drj. They are incredibly committed and knowledgeable and hardworking and compassionate. I could go on and on with adjectives, but there is such tremendous potential there, and it's really an honor to be able to work with them. So I just want to give them a shout out, and I think they've done a ton of work to get some of the foundational pieces laid, and it's going to be exciting to see where it goes.
Thanks so much for your work there. That's awesome. With you included, it really is a dream team. So over to our RAAC, Mary.
All right, and our RAAC hasn't met since January 19th, and we plan to meet on 2/16. But when we heard that that was the only possible day for all the FinCom people to be able to meet with our superintendent, we very politely just kind of backed away. And so we're not going to meet until 3/16, but we wish a very, that it will be a wonderful meeting, and on 2/16 with our superintendent and the finance committee. That's it.
Thanks, Mary. And Brett, for our CPAC update.
No report.
Awesome. Okay. So guys, items for next agenda. Just going to very quickly show you what we have on the planning calendar here for March. March is actually a pretty busy month. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm not actually looking to add anything to the agenda per se, but during the pendency of this meeting, I thought that the superintendent raised sort of an interesting issue. And maybe it's just an issue for me, but I know that since the former chair instituted this change to the agenda where she noted on the agenda, if it was going to be an action item that was requiring a vote, it would say AR, and if it was just an information only, it would say IO. Since the institution of that change to the agenda, I have come in my own personal capacity to kind of rely on that under the assumption that if it's AR, a vote will be taken or a motion will be made. If it's IO, it won't necessarily, nothing, it's going to be just information only. So I'm wondering, based on what the superintendent said tonight, do we want to have the briefest of discussions on this? Because I generally try and make all the meetings, but if there's ever a meeting where I can't make it, I'm going to look at the agenda and say, well, that's IO. I'm not going to be there. They're not going to take a vote on it. And I don't know if that's something that we might want to look at, because, correct me if I'm wrong, Superintendent, you had indicated that that was just, what do we call that? We would say that might be advisory, but not necessarily mandatory.
And I actually think it's a useful tool. I would encourage us to continue to do that, but we would get into debate if we discuss that tonight, but it's something I think we could discuss.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to put it on 3/23 just as a placeholder.
Thank you.
And then if we just, if we have to move it around, we can. Anything else, Sharon?
I'm just looking for clarification. I think that Kirk said that he was going to now work on Drj's calendar suggestions and then bring that forward to us. I just want to make sure that their recommendation doesn't get lost in the shuffle.
I would recommend that we look at that at April, possibly even May. As long as the dates are out there to the community, we'll have plenty of time to put it into play before the school year.
Okay, thank you.
So maybe I'll throw it on to the April date because the May is fleeting. We really only have one meeting of this committee, and then the 18th is with the new committee, so to speak.
Madam Chair, would it be okay if I interject an agenda item for the future?
Of course.
Dr. McGuire and I met with the Teaching Learning Alliance to begin crafting our strategic plan work that we're going to be doing in April and May. the culmination of that work will be a presentation to the school committee on our very last school committee date of the year. So in June, we can include presentation of the 5-year strategic plan.
Yes. So let's see. On 6-1, you're thinking?
If you put it there, we can shift it to 6:15. I don't have the dates in front of me. They're in my office. If you put it at 6:1, we can advance it to 6:15 if needed. But I believe it's 6:15.
Okay, so Alita, perhaps you can help me with this, but we don't normally meet on 6:15, do we? I'm new to this anyway.
Yeah, that's
It's
usually
on
our
the
last
schedule.
meeting.
The 15th?
Yeah, that's usually our last meeting, and then you have later on in the month, you usually have your workshop.
Okay. Go ahead, Sean.
Just a real quick request. We're getting posed with a lot of questions in regards to staffing and vacancies in regards to regular teaching staff and in regards to subs. Can we include that in sort of the superintendent's report next month?
You got it.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mary.
So in the timing of our presentation, the Personnel Subcommittee on Formative Assessment, so back to March 23rd, we had looked at that, talked a little bit about the fact that says 5 p.m. And so our meeting starts at 6:30. And anyway, I think we could probably do it at 6 o'clock with what we have to present. And then, because certainly we don't have to go from 5 to 6:30. Unless we
Yeah,
want
agree.
to have a party or something. Because, okay.
Not on Zoom.
Okay.
So I think absolutely, unless we need to have an executive session, and then we can perhaps revisit. But
Okay.
our formative workshop is brief.
It is.
Any other things that people would like to add, knowing that I can't see you all? So Mike? Oh, there we go.
Yep, sorry about that. I don't know if this is on there, but our district improvement plan expires on this year, right? 2022. What is the timeline for the development of that?
The strategic plan that I will bring forward on 6:15 replaces the district improvement plan. It functions as the district improvement plan.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Actually, it's funny because your mention of the strategic plan triggered my questioning of the district improvement plan. So thank you for clarifying that.
Okay. Any other things that anyone would like to see on here that we don't lose?
I think you need a placekeeper for the report out by the architect in June. Or the school building committee.
Yeah. Right, Joe? You said that the
Yeah,
architect.
give
the
me 1 second. I just want to take a look at what they had put down here.
I checked the dates.
Yeah, they had put down June 6th, but I think they were.
Well, they said. Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
No, they said June 6th, but I think they were just giving out some tentative dates and what have you. I think they plan to come and meet with us before the end of the school year, and then obviously in October as well. But I think that I may be presumptuous in saying this, but I would suggest that for what we're paying, they can be flexible. So whatever we decide is whatever we decide. I don't think they were committed distinctly to a particular date in June.
Yeah, the thing I read said week of June 6th. I don't know if that's the same week or not, but.
I assume they'd want to go later than earlier, like June 1 would not be best. So maybe we'll keep it on for the later side of the month. And then Joe, you can correct us later if we're wrong. Anything else for the good of the order? Not seeing anyone. All right. So I'm going to move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Hold on. That I know you guys have been so great. Let's vote. Sharon.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Joe?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Steve?
I will finally show my face and say yes.
Okay, Brett?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. We are adjourned, everyone. Thanks so much for your time.
Sean, I look forward to working with